What's going on, boys? We're here again with Premier League predictions for match week 12. We're back. International break was a long time. We've suffered enough. Club football is back, which means the Premier League is back. Let's do a little recap on match week 11. So the Chelsea-Arsenal game ends 1-1. I had 1-2, a little bit frustrating result there. I really believed in Arsenal to get the result. I don't know why. I thought Arsenal would win this match. 1-1 or draw just felt so right in hindsight. It kind of annoyed me. Manchester United versus Leicester, I predicted 2-0. It finishes 3-0. Not much to say about that one. I stand by the 2-0 prediction there. Nottingham, Forest, and Newcastle. I mean, I knew like the only fear I had with Nottingham Forest was what if they, have this regression, and they did, right? They got, I don't know how else to put it. They got clapped. They got clapped by Newcastle at home, which really hasn't happened this year. So they lose 3-1 to Newcastle. I had 1-1 there. Pretty bad prediction. Tottenham versus Ipswich. I bend the knee to Ipswich. Straight up, I bend the knee to Ipswich. I mean, if I had predicted Ipswich to win 2-1, Tottenham win 3-0, I would be looking like the dumbest person on YouTube, right? I would be the dumbest person on YouTube to predict anything from Ipswich in this match, right? It ends 2-1 for Ipswich, and I just have to accept it. Liverpool versus Aston Villa. I had 2-0 for Liverpool, and I get the 2-0 result. I gotta say that my Liverpool predictions, I feel like, against top teams have been pretty solid so far this year. Brighton versus Manchester City. I had 2-1 to Manchester City. Brighton are the ones that won 2-1, and I'll admit, I watched the majority of that match, and Brighton in the second half, wow. That's all I can say. It's just wow. Now I know. Maybe I can't back City as much, but I still, we'll see. We'll see what the odds look like, but I don't know if I'm still fully out on going against City now. Brentford versus Bournemouth. I had 2-2. It finishes 3-2. This one kind of hurts because predicting 5 goals in the Prem in the 3-2 sense is just kind of crazy to me. I know it's not going to be the correct result at all, but the only thing I can hold my hat on is that I did kind of expect a lot of goals here. I'm not trying to give myself any credit. I'm just saying that, for recap purposes, I did expect a lot of goals here, and it does finish with 5. I had 2-2. Crystal Palace versus Fulham. Another week of predictions. Another week of Crystal Palace letting me down. I had 1-1. It finishes 0-2 to Fulham. Fulham get the win away from home. I really don't even know what to say about that one. I did know going into that prediction it was going to be very difficult, and it was. West Ham versus Everton. I had 2-1 West Ham. It finishes 0-0. I don't even know. Nothing to say about that one, right? Just it finishes 0-0. I had 2-1. Wolves Southampton. Another result right here. I had 2-1 to Wolves. They win 2-0. I expected a little bit more out of Southampton to get a goal there, but I'm not going to cry about them not scoring. We'll take the result there. We had 1 correct score right and 3 results right. It was a pretty rough week, I would say. I think the Champions League midweek for some of these teams could have kind of messed me up a little bit. No excuses. Got to be better here. We hope to be decent after international break, but we'll see how that goes. Boys, if you guys have not already, I would really appreciate if you subscribe to the channel and like this video. We have a lot of new content coming out. I have player prop previews for the Premier League and top 5 leagues. We have more betting strategies coming from Overlizer. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like this video, and let's get to the match week 12 predictions. So we start off match week 12 with Leicester and Chelsea, and we see Chelsea are 1.55 favorites here to win the match, 4.4 on the draw, and 5.5 for Leicester to win. The total sits right at 3.25 it seems like, and the both team to score market is about 1.62, so they are expecting Leicester to get a goal here at home. I think I would be expecting that as well. So speaking of Leicester at home, they have scored in, let's say, 4 straight matches, it looks like. Yep, they've scored in 4 straight matches at home. Chelsea away from home have also, they've been scoring goals in the Prem, right? I know they didn't score in the EFL here against Newcastle, but overall, their last 3 Prem matches and their last 5 matches here, they have been scoring away from home, which can kind of help us, maybe come across a decent score line here. And then overall, when we look at the recent matchups between Chelsea and Leicester, we do see Chelsea, in the last 2 Prem matches at least, they have gotten the result, and we do see a lot of both teams to score here. This is an interesting one because I feel like there's 2 score lines in my head that I'm thinking of, 2-1 Chelsea or 3-1 Chelsea. But see, I think about that, and then I come back to the odds here, and I see that Chelsea are 1.55 to win. So is it a guarantee? Is it a guarantee that Chelsea win this match? That is where I don't want to overcompensate and maybe pick a 1-1 draw. But I think if I keep all things straightforward here, I hope this is not a match where I could see the 7:30 kickoff kind of being a weird vibe here. I think just because it's a 7:30 kickoff and I have a feeling it could be weird, I'm going to go with a 1-0 Chelsea win. Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest. As expected, Arsenal are 1.34 to win the match. Nottingham Forest is 9.25. And the 9.25 feels like the books are kind of adjusting to that 3-1 result they had against Newcastle. The total in this match sits right at about 2.753. Both teams to score market's about 2.1. They're not necessarily thinking Nottingham Forest will be able to score at the Emirates. Emirates. Arsenal at home have been very solid, right? They've only conceded in their last, how many Prem matches here? So in their last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Prem matches, they have gone BTTS no, BTTS yes, BTTS yes, BTTS yes, BTTS yes. That's 4 out of 5. Both teams to score yes. Nottingham Forest away have scored, and it looks like all of their away matches as well. So it's interesting, right? You have the both teams to score sitting at 2.1, but you know that Arsenal have been conceding at home, and Nottingham Forest has been scoring away from home. So this is where I would kind of go with the books rather than with the trends here, right? Could be wrong. It could be wrong, but I feel like if we look back at this one, it might be one of those things where I was like, okay, I see both teams to score sitting at 2.1, but nothing shows that it should be that, right? I feel like based on what we've seen recently from each team, both teams to score should be sitting at about 1.8, right? That's what I would think. Maybe it moves closer to that towards match day. We'll see. And even in the last 2 matches, we've seen both teams to score yes in both. 2-1 Arsenal at the Emirates and then 2-1 Arsenal in Nottingham Forest here. So I think I'm going to still go against the grain here. I'm going to buck the trend a little bit, and I'm going to go with an Arsenal 2-0 win over Nottingham. Aston Villa and Crystal Palace. I mean, right away, I see 1.6 for Aston Villa. That seems pretty straightforward. The draw is 4.1. Crystal Palace is 5.25. Why do I feel like this is a game that I'm just going to get wrong? Like, not before even predicting it, before even looking at any of the other odds, I just feel like I'm going to get this one wrong. It just screams a simple Villa win, and then the match occurs, and then Crystal Palace just draws them somehow. So this is where the prediction stuff gets funny, right? Do I try to back the crazy result that could really screw me up, or I just go with the generic result, which is just Aston Villa win? I mean, we're going to figure that out, right? We are going to figure that out right now. Both teams scored at that 1.75, which is a bit high. That's very disrespectful, I think, to Crystal Palace. They must not be thinking Crystal Palace is going to score at all, or they must be thinking that if Crystal Palace do score, they're not going to concede, but the latter is way more ridiculous. The total sits right at 2.75, so they're thinking 2-3 goals in this match. We look at Aston Villa at home, and I mean, something I did not realize was Crystal Palace have already beaten Aston Villa in the EFL Cup. Now, I know people are thinking EFL Cup doesn't matter that much, and I kind of agree overall. I think the FA Cup is way more important than the EFL Cup. And then you have Crystal Palace away from home here, and I mean, they've just been all right. I mean, there's nothing really to go off of Crystal Palace's recent. I almost feel like there's no point to even look at Crystal Palace's results because they don't matter. They're an inconsistent team. I almost want to just back the history here. Like, what does history say about this match? Crystal Palace won 5-0, 3-1, 1-0, 3-1. I mean, it just seems like it goes back and forth, right? It just seems like it goes back and forth. You know, I have a weird feeling this 1.61 line from Aston Villa might be looked at as a little parlay piece by the public. I feel like people might be thinking Aston Villa easy. As we know, boys, another week, another Crystal Palace prediction that I probably am not going to get right, but I'm feeling this one. Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, 1-1 draw. We have Bournemouth and Brighton here. Right away, I think this could be a very fun matchup. We see Bournemouth sitting on 2.3, Brighton sitting at 2.8. And now remember, we're seeing a Brighton team that's given 2.8 to win after beating Manchester City. So something to think about when you think about how people look at the matches, when people do their research for the matches here. I feel like there's going to be people who are going to look at this match and be like, oh, Brighton's 2.8 after beating Manchester City. So let's look at the total here. The total sits right at 3, and I think that makes sense. I really do feel like this could be a higher scoring match. Both teams' scores at 1.5, so we're already feeling 2 goals in the match, right? That's kind of why I use both teams to score, in case anyone was wondering. I like to just know if both teams' score is this high, that means they're expecting at least 2 goals, right? That's how it starts, at least. Bournemouth at home, very good lately, right? They've won 3 straight, including a win over Arsenal and over Manchester City. Brighton away from home have just been back and forth, right? They have not gotten the same 2 results in any of their away matches. They've beaten Everton, drew Arsenal, which is still good. They lost to Chelsea 4-2. They beat Newcastle, and then they lost to Liverpool 2-1, which is not the worst result, right? We look at the overall matchups here. We've seen Bournemouth win 3-0, Brighton win 3-1, Brighton win 2-0, Brighton win 1-0, and then Bournemouth win 3-1. So a little bit back and forth here. It's a difficult one. I think this is a very, very difficult one. I'm really not sure where I want to put the result on, right? I think draw seems like it's very possible, but I also feel like Bournemouth, just something about Bournemouth, they feel like they're clicking right now. I feel like Evanilson's been playing well, Semenyo's been playing well, so I think for this match, I'm going to go with a 2-1 Bournemouth win. Everton versus Brentford. I see Everton at 2.35 on the money line, 2.87 for Brentford, and the draw on 3.5. The weird thing about this one is I am a little bit surprised that Everton are favorites here. I thought this could have been a 2.6 for Everton, a 2.6 for Brentford, and then maybe a 3.75 on the draw or something like that. The over-under sits at 2.5, which I think is probably the right number. 2.5 goals does seem logical here. Both teams scores at 1.67. The problem is Brentford have played a lot of fun matches this year, right? You look at Brentford's recent Premier League form, you see 3-2 result, a 2-1 result, a 4-3 result, a 2-1 result, a 5-3 result, a 1-1, 3-1. So both teams' score goes crazy in this matchup. But the problem is, on the flip side, you look at Everton's form, and you see 3 matches that had 1 goal or less, including 2 0-0. So you think about that, and you look at Everton's form, they go draw, win, draw, loss, draw. So where do you really expect Everton to do? What do you really expect Everton to do with this match is what I'm thinking right this second. So there's 3 different things going on here. Everton low scoring matches, Brentford high scoring matches with both teams to score, but the recent result kind of, I would say implies a lower scoring result overall. The only thing I'm really struggling with is, can Everton's defense really hold Brentford down? I'm going to go with a Brentford 2-1 win over Everton. Fulham versus Wolves. We see Fulham here at 1.7, Wolves at 4.6, and the draw at 3.9. The surprising thing, without really looking into the odds too much, or even the recent head-to-heads or any type of research at all, is I'm pretty surprised Fulham is 1.7. I don't know why they're giving me like 1.55, 1.6 vibes. I feel like Fulham is one of those teams where as soon as you think they're going to win, they draw or lose, and when you think they're going to draw or lose, they win. So the total for this match sits right at 3. We see both teams' scores at about 1.7, which I could see that happening, right? I could see both teams' score happening, but I also don't know if I really love the idea of both teams scoring a match like Fulham versus Wolves here. You see Fulham at home, and they've gone both teams to score in 5 straight matches at home. You look at Wolves away form, and you see 4 out of 5 matches go BTTS. So it's interesting, right? A lot of both teams to score in both of their matches, but it's still sitting at 1.7, which is also strange because I'm very curious where this line ends up with on match day, because it feels like 1.57 was the right number, but jumping up to 1.7 it's a bit crazy to me. Looking at the recent results, you see 2-1, 3-2, and 1-1, which is all both teams to score. So something just seems off about this match overall to me. I just think that the recent results are saying one thing, but the odds are saying something completely different to me. For Fulham and Wolves, I'm going to go with a 2-0 Fulham win. Manchester City and Tottenham. We have 2 teams here who are coming off pretty bad losses. I would think Tottenham is way worse than Manchester City, but in any case, when have you ever seen Manchester City's form look like this? And you even have Tottenham, who have only won 2 out of their last 5. So it's both teams are kind of sliding right now, but they are giving a lot of respect to Manchester City still. I would imagine the total is sitting at about 3, or even 3.5 is the total. Okay, so that I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting about a 3 total, but 3.5 is what they are thinking. Both teams score sitting at 1.44, which is, I do see both teams scoring, but wow, 1.44. Oh man, I feel like only bad things happen when both teams score is that low. So Manchester City at home, while their recent form is bad, at least at home in the Prem, they still haven't lost, right? Let's just put that away. Like at home in the Prem, Manchester City have not lost. Tottenham away from home are kind of sliding a bit, right? They lost to Brighton 3-2, and they've lost to Crystal Palace 1-0. So I've heard that Tottenham in recent matches versus Manchester City is a little bit of a bogey team here, and I think you can see that, right? Tottenham have won a decent amount of matches here against a team like Man City. I don't know if there's another team that have beaten Man City this many times since 2021 even. So we do have to put a little bit of respect on that. I feel like I'm going to probably regret this result, but I just cannot get it out of my head. I'm going to go with a Manchester City 3-1 win over Tottenham. Southampton versus Liverpool. I think this is going to be a very straightforward prediction from me. We see Liverpool at 1.29, Southampton almost 10 odd to win this match. You look at Liverpool's away form here, and you can totally see why they're 1.29. You look at Southampton's home results, and you just don't see anything crazy here that would, give you a reason to believe that they would get a result here. I think for this prediction, it's just a matter of what the total is, and the total is sitting at about 3.5, and then you have the both teams score line about 1.8. I think the way I like to predict Liverpool matches is pretty straightforward. I feel like with Champions League coming up in the following week, I'm going to stick with a Liverpool 2-0 win over Southampton. Here we have Ipswich and Manchester United. It sticks out to me right away that Manchester United are 1.63, Ipswich are 4.8 with the draw at 4.2. I think the one thing I'm very interested in is Manchester United at 1.63, given their form right now, is a bit strange, right? Ever since they sacked Erik ten Hag, you look at Manchester United's recent results, and you've seen that they have been playing a lot better better since Eric Ten Hag has left. But you look at Ipswich's results and you're thinking, yeah, they beat Tottenham 2-1. Yeah, they drew Leicester 1-1. But outside of that, I mean, they lost to West Ham 4-1. They lost to Everton 2-0 at home. And they lost to Brentford in a crazy 4-3. So it seems a bit bizarre that United would be 1.63 in this match. Like, I would have projected them to be like maybe 1.45, maybe 1.5 even. So the total for this match sits at 3, and the both team score market's at 1.62. I don't think Manchester United are bad. This is completely based on the odds here that I'm going to predict this, but I'm going to go with a Ipswich Manchester United 1-1 draw. Newcastle versus West Ham. We see Newcastle sitting here at 1.55, West Ham at 5.5 in the draw and 4.33. The total for this match sits at about 3, which is pretty expected. For both teams to score, the line is 1.7. I think I would have even thought it would have been like 1.5, maybe 1.57 even, but 1.7 is not too off of what I would have originally thought. So we look at Newcastle's home form, not much to really talk about other than the Brighton loss. Other than that, they've been pretty great, with the only 2 blemishes being the Brighton loss and a Man City draw, which aren't even that bad. West Ham away from home, on the other hand, have been really struggling to find any points. They've gotten a draw versus Fulham, a draw versus Brentford, but other than that, they've been just getting, not just losing, they've lost 5-1, 4-1, 3-0. So I feel like it's a bit, I can understand why the odds are 1.55 for Newcastle, given how bad West Ham have been away from home. In the recent head-to-heads, we've seen some crazy matches, all both teams score. We've seen Newcastle win 4-3, a 2-2 draw, a 5-1 Newcastle win in West Ham, and then 2 1-1 draws here. I really think a 1-1 draw isn't the most outrageous prediction. With how bad West Ham have been away from home, it really makes it difficult for me to predict a 1-1 or any type of draw here. So for that, I'm going to go with a Newcastle 3-1 win over West Ham. All right, boys, that concludes match week 12 predictions. Hopefully we do a lot better this week than last week. I'll have the recap of the predictions right there. If you guys haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and like this video. I will catch you guys on the next Premier League match week 13 video.